My name is Emily Carter, and 3 months ago, my parents called the man I love trash and then refused to come to my wedding. At the time, I thought that was the worst thing that could happen. I was wrong. Because what happened after that didn't stay inside our family. It spread fast. Across the internet. Across millions of screens. Across people who had never met me, but somehow felt like they knew everything about my life. And the strangest part? It all started with something so small it almost feels ridiculous to say out loud. Rain hit the windows like it was trying to get inside. The coffee shop was loud, machines hissing, people talking, chairs scraping. And somehow, I still felt completely alone. I was sitting there with my laptop open, trying to finish a project that already felt like it was slipping through my hands. My phone wouldn't stop lighting up. Emails. Messages. Deadlines stacking on top of each other. My brain couldn't keep up. I remember thinking I just needed 1 hour. One quiet hour to breathe. And then I ruined everything in 1 second. My hand hit my drink. The iced coffee tipped. And I watched it spill straight across my keyboard. I froze. Not panic. Not movement. Just nothing. Like my brain shut down completely. And before I could even react, someone next to me leaned over, grabbed napkins, and said calmly, "Don't press the keys, you'll push it deeper." That was Jake. He didn't hesitate. Didn't make it awkward. Didn't try to turn it into some charming moment. He just helped. He moved the laptop carefully, soaked up what he could, stayed calm while I felt completely useless. And then, like it was nothing, he bought me another coffee and said, "I think I just saved your entire career." I laughed. More than I expected to. And that moment, messy, accidental, and completely unplanned, turned into a conversation that lasted for hours. Not small talk. Not forced. Real. We talked about random things at first, then deeper things without even realizing it. Time passed differently. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was performing. I wasn't trying to be impressive. I wasn't trying to say the right thing. I was just there. And so was he. He had grease under his fingernails. Like he didn't have time to care how his hands looked. And weirdly, that made me trust him more. Jake wasn't the kind of man my parents had always imagined for me. Not even close. He didn't wear expensive watches or talk about investments. He didn't come from money or status. He worked as a mechanic at a small garage just outside downtown. His hands were rough. His clothes were simple. Sometimes he still smelled faintly of engine oil even after cleaning up. But he noticed things. Small things. The kind of things most people miss. He remembered details I mentioned once and never repeated. He could tell when I was overwhelmed before I even said it out loud. He didn't try to fix everything. He just showed up. And one night, when I was overwhelmed by expectations I didn't even choose for myself, he said something that stayed with me. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone." And something inside me finally exhaled. Because my parents built their entire lives around proving things. My dad believed in control, strategy, success. Every decision had to lead somewhere. Every choice had to make sense on paper. My mom cared about appearances, how things looked, how people saw us, who we were connected to. I grew up in a world where expectations were never spoken directly, but they were always there. So when I told them about Jake, I already knew this wouldn't be easy. Still, I didn't expect it to go the way it did. The night I told them, everything shifted. "I met someone," I said. That's it. But the room changed. My dad muted the TV. My mom stopped mid-motion. And suddenly it wasn't about me anymore, it was about him. What does he do? Where is he from? What are his plans? Not, "Are you happy?" Not, "Do you love him?" Just evaluation. Measurement. And when I said he was a mechanic, I saw it. That look. Quick. Controlled. But there. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't going to end well. When they invited him for dinner, I hoped things might improve. I thought maybe if they met him, they would see what I saw. But that night wasn't dinner. It was a test. My mom set the table like it was some formal event. My dad dressed sharper than usual. Everything felt staged. Controlled. like a decision had already been made before Jake even walked in. And when he did, he was respectful, polite, a little nervous. He brought a small gift. Thanked them. Tried his best. For a few minutes, it was manageable. Uncomfortable, but manageable. Until my dad started asking questions. How much do you make? Do you plan to stay in that job? What's your long-term vision? They weren't really questions. They were judgments waiting for answers. Jake didn't try to impress. He didn't pretend. He just answered honestly. And that honesty was the problem. My dad didn't raise his voice. That's what made it worse. He just leaned back, looked at me, then at Jake, and said it like it meant nothing. This is who you're choosing? I felt my chest tighten. And then he said it. Emily, he's trash. Not loud. Not angry. Just final. Like a decision had already been made. I didn't look at my dad. I looked at Jake. Because in that moment, I thought, he might walk away. Anyone would have. But he didn't. He stayed calm. Steady. And simply said, I care about your daughter. That's not going to change. And somehow, that made everything worse. Because my parents didn't see strength. They saw defiance. A few days later, they gave me an ultimatum. If you marry him, don't expect us to be there. No emotion. No hesitation. Just control. And my mom added quietly, we didn't raise you for this kind of life. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't about Jake. It was about choosing between their version of my life. Then one night, Jake showed up at my door. Something was off. He didn't look at me right away. He just stood there, then said, your dad came to the garage. I laughed. Because it didn't make sense. And then he said, he offered me money to leave you. And just like that, everything inside me went quiet. Not angry. Not sad. Just empty. Jake looked at me and said quietly, I didn't take it. But you deserve to know. That night, I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. And something inside me shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just final. The next day, I called my dad. Did you go to his garage? Silence. Then I was trying to protect you. That broke something in me. From what? I asked. From loving someone you can't control? He had no answer. We met again. Same cafe. Different people. Why did you do it? I asked. Because I thought you were making the biggest mistake of your life. For the first time, I didn't explain. I didn't defend. I just said, it wasn't your life to decide. My mom spoke softly, do you think we don't love you? And I answered honestly, I think you love a version of me that doesn't exist. That was the moment everything cracked. Weeks passed. Slowly, things shifted. No more ultimatums. No more control. Just awkward effort. Then one day, my dad met Jake. At the garage. Expensive shoes on an oil-stained floor. And he said, I misjudged you. Jake looked at him and said, then you weren't really looking. And that was it. Months later, the internet moved on. But we didn't. We rebuilt. Slowly. Imperfectly. Honestly. My parents changed not completely, but enough. They showed up. They tried. And Jake? He never changed. Still steady. Still real. Still the man who never tried to prove anything. Funny thing is, the man they called trash was the only one who never tried to control me. Never tried to change me. Never tried to own my life. He just loved me. And in the end, that's the one thing they couldn't compete with. And if I had to choose again, I wouldn't even hesitate.